Just when you think the Trump administration can't get any more incompetent, they faceplant the entire global economy for sport. And now some people who support the president, particularly Fox Entertainment Channel, is having a very hard time spinning this because they worship Trump. They don't worship ideas. They don't worship principles. They worship an old man that wears orange makeup every single day of his life. Watch this clip.
Hate Donald Trump so much, they're melting down. They haven't even given this a minute. This all just happened. So we've got to take a breath. The markets will calm down next week. We knew the markets were going to be volatile because of all this uncertainty. It's always been that way. And so Secretary Brooke Rollins says there will be a short term of uncertainty, and then we'll move back to the prosperity that the president's envisioned.
Okay, number one, we all do hate Donald Trump, and for good reason. But number two, the viewers could see that that is a blonde woman sitting next to a black man on the sofa. And our listeners, just so you know, that was a blonde woman, and seated right next to her was another Fox entertainer, a black man. Per the people that they worship, both of those people would be considered DEI hires. Yet they are all chips in for this corrupt, racist, incompetent administration that demeans Black people, that demeans women. And then she's sitting there trying to gaslight this short-term suffering. This is a self-inflicted wound. The Wall Street Journal, which is owned by your boss, Rupert Murdoch, just a few days before the election said, whoever wins, they are being handed the strongest American economy in history. Democrats were initially worried that because Biden's policies were so good, that the Republicans, the MAGA Republicans, would start taking credit for all of that. Well, boy, wasn't that just a waste of time to worry about that, because they are tanking the economy for sport, for Putin, for themselves, or a combination of all of the above. But let's listen to Scott Bessent, cabinet member of Donald Trump, and he says they're doing it on purpose. Watch this clip.
Back in 1998, you look back in '07, right before it looked great, everything collapsed. So, I mean, it looked great right before everything collapsed. So we have taken us off that trajectory, and we are putting ourselves back onto a sound trajectory.
This is breathtaking. He's saying they are putting the economy into a recession on purpose. And he's saying that in 2007 that the economy looked good. It didn't look good. There were warning signs all over the place. The Republicans under George W. Bush had deregulated, as they always do, thrown the rich, tax cuts. And as these policies play out, we end up having a bubble that pops, and people were sounding the alarm. Banks need to be regulated. And it's important to always point out that regulations are actually consumer protections. And Republicans have diabolically messaged that regulations are harmful to working class Americans. Actually, they're not. They're beneficial to working class Americans. Regulations protect you from corporations' worst instincts. Okay, but don't just take my word for it. Watch this video from the University of Michigan economist Justin Wolfers about how short-sighted MAGA economic policies are.
Only have to endure in a little bit of short-term pain for the long-term gain. What's your assessment of that?
Well, it's not just my assessment. Of course, you could ask me. I think that this is short-term pain and long-term pain. But perhaps it would be more useful to look to financial markets, because when people buy stock in a company, what they're doing is they're buying a share of all the future profits of that company. And what we've seen is that US stocks have absolutely cratered in light of these tariffs. So that tells us that people who are betting millions and in many cases billions of dollars, taking long-term bets on companies, think that the long-term profitability of American corporations, the very group these tariffs are meant to help, that long-term profitability is going to be substantially lower. So markets are telling us it's long-term pain as well.
All right, you hear that, triple Trumpers? It's not just short-term pain. It's short-term pain for even worse long-term gain for the American economy for no good reason other than Donald Trump is the most broken, psychotic man this country has ever elected. And he was a convicted felon. He is a convicted felon. And despite that, tens of millions of Americans voted for him anyway. He has filed for bankruptcy 6 times, yet they think he's rich and they think he's good with the economy. He bankrupts casinos. This beginning right here, this is the beginning of long-term economic hardship for Americans. And how is Trump spinning all of this on Lie Social, his social media platform? Because back when the oligarchs had a spine, they kicked him off of social media. But of course, they don't have any morals or conviction, and they put him right back on. Look at this. And of course, it's caps lock. To the many investors coming into the United States and investing massive amounts of money, my policies will never change. This is a great time to get rich, richer than ever before. And what's interesting about this is, per his senior Nazi advisor, Stephen Miller, America is for Americans and Americans only. Yet Donald Trump is selling $5 million gold cards with his face on it to unvetted foreign nationals. And he just says right here on Lie Social, my policies will never change. America is for sale. Come into America and get rich. And you know why they're going to believe him? Because they can look at Elon Musk, who did the exact same thing, came to the United States from South Africa and got rich as shit off of American taxpayers and subsidies. And if you think that Trump is going to not get played by these foreign investors, they're going to come over, they're going to tell him he's a great golfer, they're going to play around a golf with him, let him win. They're going to tell him he's so brilliant and he's the best American president they've ever had. And then it's going to be quid pro quo city. And the people who are going to hurt the most are these triple Trumpers that are too intellectually lazy to watch anything other than Fox News. And when that's not a big enough hit, then they graduate to the more hardcore stuff in the right-wing media manosphere, which brings me to my next tweet. We have right now an opportunity for people on the right that claim to be fiscal conservatives to say we were wrong. We thought this was going to be kind of like Trump 1.0 economic plans, and this is a disaster. This is horrible for national security. It's horrible for the working class. It's horrible for our global positioning in the world. No. What do they do at this point? They pull out the good old tried and true race card. Here we have Matt Walsh, and he tweets, if I told you that a young man stabbed another young man to death for telling him that he was in the wrong seat, and then I told you that one young man in this altercation was white and the other black, and then I asked you to guess the race of the assailant, every single person would know the answer immediately. Young black males are violent to a wildly, outrageously disproportionate degree. That's just a fact. We all know it, and it's time that we speak honestly about it, or nothing will ever change. This is breathtaking racism. You have privileged white men that have benefited from the affirmative action of generational wealth, to quote Michelle Obama, who have benefited from that, who have now wrecked the economy for sport because they're broken, malignant narcissists. And you drag out the race card, Matt Walsh, that is so despicable and disgusting. The fact of the matter is, what we need to talk about is that Black Americans were enslaved and did all of the labor that benefited white Americans for generations. And that's why when white people like me, if I were to come upon hard times, my parents could help parachute me a few months or a year or two if something terrible were to happen, because I have benefited from generational wealth to white people. And my parents aren't super duper wealthy, but they do okay because they are white and their parents before them are white. So if we're really going to talk about race, let's really, really talk about it. But what you're doing right there is hate baiting, race baiting to your racist base that voted for the most incompetent, broken person this country has ever seen because their racism trumps their logic. Pun intended. All right. Why? Why do they constantly have to demean Black people? Why do they constantly have to demean women? Why are they so scared of gay people? Why are they so triggered by trans people? I'll show you why. Here's a video of Kamala Harris predicting exactly what would happen to the economy if Trump were elected.
What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
Think about how blinded these people are by racism and sexism. This woman predicted exactly what is happening right now during the presidential debate. But because she has estrogen in her body and melanin in her skin, the Matt Walshes of the world, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, the Fox Newses of the world want to remind you that only white men can have positions of power. It's just horrific the way this country voted in this last election. Next up, privileged white men are finding out exactly what their support and amplification of Donald Trump is doing to their own personal pocketbooks. Watch this clip of Dave Portnoy of Barstool Sports.
Trump has put his tariffs all over the place, get some wacky formula and do tariffs. And everything's in the shitter because of it. I'm down $7 million.
You know what? Maybe had you supported Kamala Harris and amplified her and helped expose the dangers of fascism and electing a convicted felon and not gotten all excited about Bitcoin and all this other crazy shit, you wouldn't have lost $7 million. Dave Portnoy has millions of followers on social media. And a lot of Americans, that's where they get their news. But instead, you choose to traffic in sexism and bro frat humor, and it didn't benefit you to the tune of $7 million. And per all of the economists in the world, this is the short-term pain. That $7 million is going to grow when we hit the long-term portion of this. All right. And finally, in the most painful I told you so tour, here is our girl, Kamala Harris again, who I desperately miss. Let's play this clip.
The fear that has been taking hold in our country, and I understand it, but we're saying people stay quiet. We are seeing organizations stay quiet. We are seeing those who are capitulating to clearly unconstitutional threats. And these are the things that we are witnessing each day in these last few months in our country. And it understandably creates a great sense of fear. Because, you know, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
You know what's the irony of this whole thing? I started the video with a blonde woman sitting next to a black man who just bend themselves and like meld to the whims and desires of a broken Donald Trump who will never fight for them, whose administration will say they are DEI hires the second they use critical thinking on air. But you know who will fight for them despite their horrific, dangerous propaganda? Kamala Harris. You know who would have fought to keep the economy intact after Biden passes the baton from our recovery from COVID? Kamala Harris. But all of these people are so blinded by their hate, they vote against their self-interest. And I think the autopsy of American history is going to be, it was a self-inflicted wound caused by hatred, racism, homophobia, sexism, and a large portion of the Americans' public's inability to critically think. All right, guys, that's it for today. Please subscribe to our channel. Pumps and I are trying to get to 1 million subs. I think we can do it with your help. Check and make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you all later.